At 5:35 in the morning, Miss Rufus Sawyer lit the small red candle on the little home altar before her first cup of coffee. It was August 12th, 2025, and Cedar Hollow, Tennessee, was wrapped in that dry mountain air that smells of scrub cedar and dust off the ridge. The little altar held three things: a small black and white photograph of her brother Sutton, taken in 1985, a plain wooden cross, and the red candle in its glass jar, bought every Wednesday at Miss Marcy's store for 50 cents apiece. Miss Rufus struck the match with her right hand, brought the flame to the wick, waited for it to catch, and then she said three words in a low voice. "I'm here, brother." That was all. 40 years doing the same thing. Ever since '86, when Sutton died of black lung at 47 in the county hospital over in Fairview, she had lit that little candle every single dawn. She had said those three words and she had gone on with her day. No more ceremony, no more prayer. Miss Rufus had turned 84 back in March. She picked blackberries, gathering them along the brambles up on Pochote Ridge, wearing a thick leather glove during the season from late August into October. Before that, she had worked at the St. Joseph Mill for 43 years, from '62 all the way to 2005. Before that, she'd been a miner's daughter. And before that, a miner's sister. She lived alone in the house on the corner of Harrow Street and Miners Lane, in the old mineral district, a whitewashed clapboard house with a tin roof, 2 rooms, a kitchen with a clay wood stove, and a small yard with a stone wash basin. The house had been her parents'. Then it had been hers and Andrew's. Andrew had died in 2009, also of black lung, also a miner, also after many years coughing up grey dust. She had 3 children. Cody, the oldest, 61, an accountant for the county over in Fairview. Sally, the middle one, 49, a nurse at the Cedar Hollow Clinic, and Elliot, the youngest, 54, a petroleum technician working a rig down in Texas. Of the 3, Sally was the one who was there. Cody came every 2 or 3 months. From Fairview to Cedar Hollow is 50 miles down State Route 49, about an hour and a half by car. Cody had a silver pickup, a 2018 model. He'd come on Sundays, eat with his mother, say little, and leave by 4 in the afternoon. Elliot didn't come. He called once a month, 15 minutes at a time. He'd talk about the weather down in Texas, about a girlfriend he'd had for 3 years, about a nephew who didn't exist. The conversation was polite and empty. Sally came every single day after work, around 5:30 in the evening. She'd bring bread from the bakery in town, warm up her mother's supper, tell her about the clinic, about the new doctor who'd come up from the city, about the flu shots that would start in September. That was Miss Rufus's life, right up until August 12th. At 9:15 that Tuesday morning, Miss Rufus was out in the little yard, hanging a sheet on the line. The sheet was white with a border embroidered in a thin red chain stitch. It had been her mother's. She washed it on Tuesdays with a bar of soap. She'd pin it up with a wooden clothespin. Then a car engine sounded out front, an engine she knew, the silver pickup. Miss Rufus wasn't surprised. Cody came on Sundays. It was a Tuesday, but every so often he came midweek, rarely and only when he had something to say. She wasn't surprised, but something happened inside her chest, something small like when a light comes on in a room where you weren't expecting to see one. She set down the clothespin, left it on the wash basin, crossed the yard, stepped into the kitchen, settled the grey shawl over her shoulders and walked to the front door. Cody, who was just getting out of the truck, wore a long-sleeved beige shirt, dark brown dress pants, closed shoes. He carried a black leather briefcase in his right hand, and behind the truck stood a medium-sized rolling suitcase, navy blue. The suitcase was his mother's. Miss Rufus recognized it. "Morning, Mama," Cody said. "Morning, son. I came to talk to you." Miss Rufus nodded. She stepped aside. Cody came in carrying the briefcase. He left the suitcase outside, leaned up against the front wall. They went into the kitchen. Miss Rufus put water in the tin pot, took out the ground coffee, lit the wood stove. Cody sat down on the wooden bench with the briefcase across his thighs, waiting. Waiting for the water to boil. Waiting for the coffee to settle. Waiting for his mother to pour 2 clay mugs. Cody knew his mother didn't talk before that. He waited. Miss Rufus poured the coffee. set a mug in front of Cody, sat down across from him with her own, took the first sip, and then she looked at him. "Tell me, son." Cody opened the briefcase, took out 3 sheets of paper, and laid them on the table. "Mama, I came to explain something to you. I'm asking you to hear me out without interrupting." Miss Rufus nodded. "The house doesn't hold up anymore. I know you think it does, but it doesn't. I've been going over the numbers. Dad's widow's pension from Social Security comes to about $1,300 a month. Your own small benefit comes to about $400. Together, that's $1,700 a month. And the house costs money. Property tax, water, electric, gas, roof repairs. That roof needs new shingles. I told you back in May. And at your age, you shouldn't be living alone anymore." Miss Rufus took another sip. "Sally's here. Sally doesn't live with you. Sally gets here at 5:30 and leaves at 8. Sally has her own house. She's got Reggie. She's got her 2 boys. Sally can't take care of you the way you need to be taken care of." "I don't need anyone taking care of me." "Yes, you do." There was silence. Miss Rufus looked at the mug. Then she looked at the 3 sheets of paper on the table. "What are those papers?" "I'm going to tell you straight, Mama. I already talked to the assisted living home over in Fairview, the one out in the Highland Pines neighborhood. There's a room. It's a shared room, but it's clean. You'd be in with another lady. They've got a dining hall, they've got a yard, they've got a nurse on staff. I'd come see you on Sundays, same as always. Elliot's going to put in part of the cost, I'll put in the rest. Sally would only have to go on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Those are the visiting days." Miss Rufus didn't answer. "These are the papers. Here's the admission application. Here's the authorization for me to manage your benefits while you're admitted. And here's the paper for the house." "What paper for the house?" "Power of attorney, so I can manage the house while you're at the home. The idea is to rent it out. The rent would cover whatever the home doesn't. It's the most sensible thing, Mama, for everyone." Miss Rufus took the last sip from her mug and set it down on the table. The mug made a small sound against the wood. "You want to rent the house out for now? Yes, later on, if you're doing well at the home and you get used to it, we could think about selling it. But for now, just rent it." Cody: "Yes, Mama. What time did you think all this up?" Her son shifted on the bench. "I've been thinking about it for several months. I talked it over with Elliot back in July. Sally knows. I know you think it's all of a sudden, but it isn't. It's something we've been working toward. Sally knows. Yes. And you come tell me today. I came to tell you once I had everything ready, so I wouldn't worry you ahead of time. The home's had a room open since last Friday. I brought the suitcase because I figured if you agreed today, I'd take you the same day so as not to drag it out." Miss Rufus looked at the suitcase through the open door. It sat outside against the wall, navy blue, medium-sized, the wheels still wet with morning dew. She recognized it. It was the suitcase Andrew had given her in 1991 when the 2 of them went to a cousin's wedding 2 towns over. The suitcase had belonged to them both. Andrew had died. The suitcase had stayed put away in the cedar wardrobe in the back room, under the old blankets. Cody had gone into that wardrobe. Cody had pulled the suitcase out. "You took the suitcase out of the wardrobe?" "Yes." "When?" "A little while ago, when you went to let me in. I came in first to say hello. I saw you were out in the yard. I left the briefcase in the front room. I went to the back room, I opened the wardrobe, I took out the suitcase, I set it outside. You went into the back room." "Yes, Mama. Don't be angry." Miss Rufus wasn't angry. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't move her hands. She stayed seated with the empty mug in front of her, and her eyes set on the 3 sheets of paper on the table. A few seconds passed. "And if I tell you no?" Cody breathed in. He searched for how to say it. "Mama, I'm going to ask you to think about it. I don't want to pressure you today. I'll give you a week. I'll leave the suitcase here ready. I'll leave the papers. You think it over. Talk it over with Sally. Talk it over with Elliot if you want. Though Elliot's already talked it over with me and he agrees. And next week I'll come back Tuesday. Next Tuesday, the 19th, this same time." "What are you coming back for?" "To take you. If you say yes. And if I say no." Cody fell quiet. Then he said, lower. "If you say no, Mama, we're going to have to think about other things. But I'd rather you said yes, because if you say no, what comes next is complicated for everyone." "Complicated how? I don't want to talk about that now. Think it over good, Mama. 1 week, that's all I'm asking." Miss Rufus lowered her eyes to the papers. She saw that her signature was already on one of the 3. A signature in blue ink, copied with a stroke almost exactly like her own, almost, but not quite, with the curve of the R a little tighter than the way she made it. She said nothing. Cody stood up, closed the briefcase, left the 3 sheets on the table, straightened his shirt. "I'm heading back to Fairview, Mama. I've got a meeting at noon. I'll leave you the coffee. Call me if you need anything. You've got my cell." "Yes, take care." "All right." Cody went out, walked to the door, opened it, passed by the suitcase without touching it, climbed into the silver pickup and started the engine. The motor faded off down Miners Lane, dropping toward the town square, and then it couldn't be heard anymore. Miss Rufus stayed seated on the wooden bench, the 3 sheets of paper on the table, the empty mug beside them, the suitcase outside against the wall. Something was happening in her chest. It wasn't fear and it wasn't anger either. It was a thing standing still in the center, silent, heavy, like a small animal that had settled in there and would not move. She got up slowly, crossed the kitchen, went out into the yard, and walked to the clothesline. She took the white sheet with the red chain-stitch border, took it down, folded it in half, folded it again, carried it to the back room, opened the cedar wardrobe, and then she saw. The wardrobe was in disarray. The old blankets that had been folded on the top shelf were now stacked up wrong. The cloth bag where she kept Andrew's socks was open. The small drawer on the left, the one with the old letters and her mother's bone rosary, was ajar. It wasn't shut all the way. Miss Rufus always shut it tight, always. Cody had been in here. Cody had been searching. Miss Rufus stood in front of the open wardrobe, the folded sheet still in her hands. What had he been searching for? The suitcase wasn't all of it. The suitcase was outside. Cody had taken the suitcase, but the small drawer on the left doesn't open to take out a suitcase. The small drawer on the left opens when you're looking for something else. Miss Rufus set the sheet on the bed, went over to the drawer, opened it all the way. Inside were the old letters tied with red cord, the bone rosary, a silver thimble, a little prayer card of St. Anne, and at the bottom, beneath everything, a rusted tin box the size of a palm. The box was there. They hadn't taken it out, but it had been moved. It sat a little forward, not at the back where she always kept it. Cody had touched the box. Miss Rufus took it out and opened it. Inside was an iron key, thick, old rusted, the size of a man's index finger, with a cardboard tag tied on with twine. The tag had 4 letters written in pencil, in the uneven hand of a man who learned to write late. L.R. Little Refuge. It was the key to her brother Sutton's mine. Miss Rufus closed her fist over the key, felt it cold against her palm, then opened her hand and looked at it. The cardboard tag was folded over at one edge, as if someone had lifted it and let it drop again. Cody had read the tag. Miss Rufus closed the box again, set it back in the drawer, shut the wardrobe, left the back room, and returned to the kitchen. She sat down again on the wooden bench. The 3 sheets were still on the table. Little Refuge was the name Sutton had given his small mine when he opened it in 1976. He'd named it that for her, for his sister, Rufus, because Sutton used to say she had been his refuge when the 2 of them were children and their father drank. The mine was up on Pochote Ridge, 4 miles northeast of Cedar Hollow, along the old logging trace. A small mine mouth, a main shaft 40-odd feet deep, a thin vein of silver that Sutton had worked alone with one helper, a mute man named Cyrus, until he died of black lung in 1986. After Sutton's death, no one had gone back into the mine. Cyrus, the helper, had gone back to his own town, Stony Bend, and died there in 1989. Sutton's widow, Eleanor, had moved away with her 2 daughters and never come back to Cedar Hollow. Sutton's children hadn't come back either. The mine had simply stayed. Miss Rufus had kept the key because Sutton had given it to her the day before he died in the Fairview hospital. He'd told her, "Sister, keep it safe for me." That's what he'd told her. and she had kept it 40 years in a tin box at the back of a drawer in a cedar wardrobe, never going in, never opening it, never returning to Pochote Ridge, until today. Miss Rufus took the key between her fingers, turned it, looked at the other side. The cardboard tag had the 4 letters in pencil, LR, and below them, nearly worn away but still legible, 2 more words in Sutton's hand. "My sister," it said. That's what the tag said. 40 years without her reading it up close. 40 years with that word written there. My sister. Miss Rufus lowered her hand, rested the key against the table, closed her eyes. And then she heard, in the center of her chest, something she hadn't heard in a long time. Sutton's voice. It wasn't a voice. It was a way of thinking that she'd forgotten she had. A way that was his, that he'd taught her as a girl, back when the 2 of them lived in the small log room on Old Mine Road, and their father drank, and Sutton would tell her in a low voice under the wool blanket, "Sister, when things turn bad on us, you go up to the ridge. Nobody follows you up to the ridge. Up on the ridge there's rocks and there's shade and there's water in the little cistern. Up there nobody hits you." That's what Sutton had told her when she was 8 and he was 11. 40 years later, Miss Rufus opened her eyes and knew what she was going to do. She didn't think it in words. She knew it with a small clarity, no shout, no tear. The way you recognize a taste you haven't had in a long time and suddenly know it completely in a single sip. She got up from the wooden bench, took the key, put it in the left pocket of her apron, crossed the kitchen, went out into the yard, crossed the yard, went into the back room, opened the cedar wardrobe, took out the old wool blanket, the thick one, the one that had been her mother's. She took out a change of clothes, took out a cloth bag, took out the spare red candle, took out the matches, took out the bone rosary, took out the little prayer card of St. Anne. She put it all into the cloth bag, closed the wardrobe, returned to the kitchen, and picked up the 3 sheets Cody had left on the table. She looked at them. The copied signature was there, with the curve of the R a little tighter than the way she made it. She folded the 3 sheets in half. She put them into the cloth bag too. She wasn't going to throw them out. She was going to keep them in case they were useful later. She went out into the yard again, filled a glass bottle with water from the spigot, put it in the bag. It was 11:20 in the morning. Before we go on with Miss Rufus, a small pause here. If you've made it to this moment in the story, you're already inside it. You know it, and I know it. And I'm going to ask you one thing. Before she makes the first decision of her life without asking anyone's permission, leave me a comment down below. Put the name of a brother or a sister who is no longer with you, and put one small thing that person taught you without ever saying it in words. One little thing, whatever it is. I'm going to read every comment, and to one person, the one who feels like they're asking to be named, I'll reply with a word meant just for them. And then tap the little heart down below, because that helps this story reach other older women like Miss Rufus. And if you want us to keep going together through stories like this one, subscribe to the channel. Now, back to the yard on Harrow Street. Miss Rufus slung the cloth bag over her right shoulder, settled the grey shawl over her head, and before going out she stopped at the little home altar. The red candle was still burning from before dawn. It had wick enough for 3 more hours. Miss Rufus looked at it. She looked at the small photograph of Sutton from 1985. She looked at the wooden cross, and she said in a low voice, "I'm going to see you, brother." That was all. She closed the front door, turned the key twice, put the house key in the right pocket of her apron. The mine key went in the left. She started walking. Harrow Street runs down toward the north end of the mineral district. It passes the Old Town Market, where at that hour Miss Cora was setting out a basket of fresh cornbread on the stall outside. Miss Cora saw her go by and raised a hand. Miss Rufus raised a hand too, without stopping. "Miss Rufus, where you off to so early?" "Just out, Miss Cora. I'll be back later. I'll set aside 2 of the cornbread for you." "Yes, Miss Cora. 2 with the pork. I'll have 'em right here." Miss Rufus kept walking. She passed the market, crossed Independence Street, went up Allen Street, reached the edge of town. After the last house, where the cobbled road ends and the dirt track begins, Miss Rufus stopped for a moment. To her left lay the old Cedar Hollow Cemetery. Sutton was there in a plot with a stone cross that she visited every year. Andrew too, and her mother, and her father. Miss Rufus did not go into the cemetery. She turned to the north and kept on along the track. The track up to Pochote Ridge is about 4 miles. It climbs little by little. It's dust, loose stone, scrub cedar roots, patches of bramble, the odd dry sagebrush. At that time of year, August, the high country is still hot at midday, but the blackberries are already dark on the canes. Miss Rufus watched them pass on either side without touching them. She'd come pick her own in September. There'd be time. At 11:45 she stopped at a big rock, a black boulder at the edge of the road. She sat, drank from the bottle, ate half a hard biscuit she carried folded in her apron, and looked at the horizon. Pochote Ridge was there to the northeast, grey-blue under the midday sun. The mine mouth wasn't visible from that distance, but she knew where it was, halfway up the slope, on the southeast face, marked by 2 old shade trees that gave the ridge its name. Miss Rufus got up and kept walking. At 1:20 in the afternoon she reached the foot of the ridge and began to climb the small footpath that you could barely see anymore. Sutton and Cyrus, the helper, had cut that path in 1975. 50 years later, you could still make it out. The plants had grown over it, but the line was there. Miss Rufus climbed slowly. At 84, you don't climb fast. She rested every 20 yards. She drank water and went on. At 1:55 she arrived. The mine mouth was there. It was a rectangular hole in the slope of the ridge, 4.5 feet high, 2.5 feet wide, braced with 2 thick cedar posts on the sides and a third across the top like a lintel. The entrance was closed off with an old wooden door, secured with a rusted iron padlock. Sutton had put the door up in 81 when he started keeping tools inside and didn't want them stolen. Miss Rufus came closer, ran her hand over the wood of the door. The wood was dry, grey, cracked from the sun, but still firm. The posts, too. Sutton had known how to pick his timber. She found the padlock, took the key from the left pocket of her apron, fit it in, turned. The lock resisted. 40 years unused. Miss Rufus turned again, slowly, without forcing it. Something inside the lock gave way, turned once more, and the lock opened. Miss Rufus lifted it off, set it on the ground beside the door, pushed the wood. The door gave with a dry crack like an old branch breaking, and then the air came at her. The air of the mine, shut in 40 years, hit her in the face. It was a smell she didn't know and yet recognized at once. Damp from ancient stone, iron rust from the vein, rock dust, something faintly sweet and mineral, a trace of old kerosene, and beneath it all, almost impossible to name, the smell of a man's hands that had worked in there a long time. Dried sweat, old tobacco, boot leather. Sutton. Miss Rufus stood in the mine mouth with the cloth bag slung over her shoulder and her eyes closed. The air of the mine came in through her nose, went down into her chest, rose up through her head, and did something inside her that she didn't dare name, something she had waited 40 years for. She opened her eyes. Inside it was dark. She took from the bag the candle stub she'd grabbed at the last moment in the kitchen before leaving. She lit it with a match. The flame held. The air of the mine didn't put it out. That was a good sign. It meant the shaft had breath, that the air chimney Sutton had opened in the ceiling at the back was still working. Miss Rufus took the first step inside. The floor was packed earth with bits of stone. The walls were that same rock, grey-blue with finer, lighter veins. The shaft was about 5.5 feet high. She, small woman that she was, fit through standing up. 10 feet from the entrance, the light from outside began to fade. 15 feet in, there was only the candle. Miss Rufus advanced slowly, her left hand against the wall, her right holding the candle. At about 20 feet she saw the first mark. It was a horizontal line drawn in white chalk at eye level. The chalk was faded but still visible. And below the line, 2 words written with that same chalk-wet finger in Sutton's uneven hand. Vein 1. Miss Rufus came closer, ran her fingers over the chalk. It was dry, rough, real. She kept walking. At about 40 feet, another mark. A small cross, also in chalk. And below it, water. At about 50 feet, a third mark. This one was an arrow pointing inward, and below it a single word, onward. Miss Rufus went on. The candle lit little, but enough to see what she needed to see. At about 70 feet she found the first lamp. It was hung from a cedar post on the right side of the corridor, a kerosene lantern, the kind used in the small mines before electric light came in. The cotton wick was still inside. The kerosene reservoir was empty, but the lantern was whole, intact, the glass unbroken, and the knob still working. Miss Rufus took it down. It weighed less than she expected. She put it in the cloth bag. She was going to fill it. Then she went on. At about 90 feet she found the notches. There were 7 of them, cut with a chisel straight into the stone at the height of a man's shoulder. Each notch was accompanied by a number carved beside it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Miss Rufus counted them. She counted them again. She ran her finger over each one. The stone was smooth where the chisel had worked, smooth as a kiss. 7 notches, 7 small veins that Sutton had marked for himself, to remember where they were when he came back the next day with the pick and the powder. Miss Rufus stood looking at the notches a long while. The candle lit half her face. The other half was in shadow. Something happened to her. It wasn't weeping and it wasn't anger, it was something else. It was as if the walls of the mine had come a little closer, as if her brother's hand, dead 40 years, was still there in the stone, beneath the chalk, beneath the chisel, waiting for someone to come and look at it. And she had come late, but she had come. Miss Rufus whispered, "I'm here, brother." The candle trembled a little, then it steadied. Miss Rufus kept walking. The shaft went on. At about 115 feet it widened a little. At about 130 it made a gentle curve to the right, and at about 150 feet at the back, where the shaft ended in a closed wall of hard stone that Sutton hadn't been able to bore through because the vein had run out, there was a ledge. The ledge was natural, an outcrop of rock 4 feet off the floor. On it, by the yellow light of the candle, Miss Rufus saw a small box, a tin box the size of a shoebox but lower, with the lid closed, painted on the outside in faded cobalt blue. No padlock, just shut. Miss Rufus came up to the ledge, set the cloth bag on the floor, settled her shawl, and with both hands slowly took the box. It was heavy, but not very. 6 or 8 pounds. She wiped the dust off with the sleeve of her apron. Beneath the dust, a paper label appeared, glued on with dried paste, written in pencil in Sutton's hand. "For Rufus, if this reaches you." Miss Rufus lowered the box to the floor, knelt beside it, set the candle on a flat stone nearby, and opened the lid. Inside were 3 things. 1. A folded bundle of papers tied with red cord. 12 sheets, school notebook paper, ruled, yellowed, written in pencil on both sides in Sutton's uneven hand. Miss Rufus took them out. She looked at them. The first sheet began with 4 words. "Sister, I'll explain everything." Miss Rufus swallowed. 2. A manila envelope sealed with red wax. The wax bore the mark of a thumb. Not a stamp, just a thumb pressed in warm. The envelope had written on the front, also in Sutton's hand, "Last will of Sutton Sawyer, year 1985, for my sister, Rufus Sawyer Carter." Miss Rufus took out the envelope, held it with both hands. The wax was hard, intact. The envelope had never been opened. 3. At the bottom of the box, beneath the papers and the envelope, there was a little cloth pouch tied with a loose knot. Miss Rufus took it. It was heavy for its size. She opened it. Inside were 7 small stones, each the size of a quail's egg, each one glinting with a white metal that Miss Rufus recognized without knowing how to name it. Silver. 7 pieces of ore with silver still inside them, 1 for each vein marked with a chisel notch out in the shaft. Sutton had left her at the back of the mine a sample of every vein he had opened that she, at 84, could come take out if she decided to take them out. Miss Rufus closed the pouch, put it back in the box, set the envelope on top, set the 12 sheets on top of the envelope, closed the lid, and then something happened to her. Something that hadn't happened to her in a long time. Something that couldn't be named with the word weeping, because it wasn't exactly that, but it wasn't anything else either. And so, to understand it, she let her body do it however it could. Her eyes filled. Her face didn't move. Her hands stayed firm on the lid of the box, but something inside her chest, that small animal that had settled in that morning when Cody showed her the 3 sheets of paper, that small animal stood up, shook itself, settled somewhere else, and went still again. But in another place. In a place where it wasn't in the way. Miss Rufus took the first sheet of the bundle, brought it close to the candle, and began to read. "Sister, I'll explain everything. If this box reached you, it's because Dr. Salgado at the Fairview Hospital was right. Black lung doesn't get better. I'm going to die before you read this. I don't know when. Maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year. But before it happens, I'm leaving you here, written down, what you need to know, because when I die, everyone is going to forget about the mine. Eleanor's going to move away with the girls. I already know that. Cyrus, the helper, is going to leave too, and the mine is going to be left alone. But the mine is yours. It's been yours since we opened it. I opened it, but I opened it for the 2 of us. I always told you that, and you'd laugh and say, no, it was mine. But it wasn't mine. It was ours. And now that I'm going, it's yours." Miss Rufus lowered the sheet a moment, closed her eyes, breathed, then raised it again. "I'm going to explain how things stand. The mine has 7 small veins. I marked them with notches in the wall. Each one gives a little silver, but all of them together add up. I worked the first 3 between 76 and 80. Number 4 and number 5 I opened in 82, number 6 in 83. Number 7 I found in July of 85, 2 months ago, and I still haven't touched it. I'm leaving that one to you. It's the best." Miss Rufus went on. The sheets continued. Sutton explained everything to her. The technique, how to go in, where the air chimney was, where the spare kerosene was stored, in a small cavity behind the flat stone where she had set the candle right now on the floor, where the small pick was, where the shovel was, where the little sack of dry powder was for blasting open vein 7 if she wanted to open it wider. He explained too, in sheets further on, the names of the buyers in the city, buyers Sutton had known for years. 3 men. Mr. Edward Renner, a buyer of raw silver at the Central Market, Mr. Philip Anders, a jeweller downtown on Main Street, and a third, Mr. Andrew Bell, who bought for a small smelter 2 counties over. "These 3 are honest," the note said. "They won't cheat you. If one is dead, go to another. If all 3 are dead, go to the Independent Miners Union over in Fairview and ask them to recommend someone. Tell them you come on behalf of Sutton Sawyer, the one from Cedar Hollow. Some of the old-timers will still remember me," Miss Rufus went on. On sheet 7, Sutton explained the most important thing. "Sister, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'll tell you anyway. I think that when I die, you won't come to the mine. You'll keep the key, you'll put it in some drawer, and you'll forget it, because that's how you are, because you take care of things by keeping them, not by using them. And I respect that. This isn't a reproach. It's just what I know about my sister. That's why I'm writing you this will, so that if one day a moment comes in your life when you need a refuge, a place of your own that no one can take from you, you'll remember that you have this mine, that it's yours, that it's been written in your name since 78, registered at the State Mining Office, parcel 5822 of the County Mineral Registry, and that the official paper is held by Mr. Oliver Aiken, the notary at office number 12 in Cedar Hollow, in his files. I gave it to him in April of 85, and he promised to keep it until you came to ask for it. If Mr. Oliver has already died by the time you read this, his son, young Oliver Aiken Jr., who's 22 now and studying law in the city, will be carrying on the practice. Ask him." Miss Rufus lowered the sheet. The mine was in her name since 78. Sutton had put it in her name 48 years ago, without telling her, without warning her, without asking her permission, so that one day, if she needed it, it would be hers, on paper. Miss Rufus breathed, returned to sheet 7. "Sister, if you've made it this far, listen to this. I don't know what'll be happening to you when you read this, but if you came to the mine, it's because something happened to you. Nobody comes to an abandoned mine for the fun of it. You come because something in your home can't be born anymore, and then you remember the ridge. If that's it, then listen. The mine is yours. The shaft has an air chimney. There's water in the little cistern I opened in '82, about 100 feet from the back, on the left behind a big rock shaped like a shoulder. The water seeps in from the rain. It's good. I drank it for 3 years. It won't make you sick. If you need to sleep inside, the best place is the curve at 130 feet, where the shaft widens. A cot fits there. The wind from outside doesn't reach there. The temperature is the same all year, about 57, 58 degrees. Cold at night, cool by day. With Mama's wool blanket, you'll be fine. If you need to eat, the blackberries on the ridge are within your reach. The cornbread from Miss Cora at the market will last you a week if you keep it well. And if you need anything more, call Sally. Sally knows she loves you. Sally isn't Cody. Don't ask me how I know. I know. Miss Rufus lowered the sheet very slowly. Sally isn't Cody. Sutton had written that in '85, when Sally was 8 and Cody was 20. Sutton couldn't have known what was going to happen 40 years later. He couldn't have, and yet he had written that line. Miss Rufus went on. Sister, last thing, and with this I'll close. The 7 small stones I left you in the cloth pouch, those are yours too. Each one is worth a fair bit at the market in the city, depending on the grade of purity. The 7 together, well sold, can be worth a good sum. That was '85 money. I don't know what they'll be worth when you take them out, but they'll be worth something. Enough for you to live a while, if you need to live a while, without asking anyone. It isn't much, but it's yours. And vein 7 is still there. If one day you decide to open it, sister, the dry powder is in the sack behind the flat stone. The pick too, the chisel too. I taught you when we were kids. You remember. I love you, sister, as far as it can go, and a little beyond. Sutton, Cedar Hollow, Tennessee, July 1985. Miss Rufus folded sheet 7, set it on top of the other 6 she had already read. She rested her hands against her thighs. The candle was still burning on the flat stone. The air of the mine moved slowly between the back and the mine mouth. Sutton's chimney was still working 40 years later. Miss Rufus stayed a long time like that, kneeling beside the faded cobalt blue tin box, the folded sheets in her lap, the wax-sealed envelope still closed beside her, the pouch of 7 stones intact. She thought about Cody. She thought about the navy blue suitcase against the wall on Harrow Street. She thought about the 3 sheets with the copied signature and the curve of the R a little tighter than the way she made it. She thought about the assisted living home over in Fairview, in the Highland Pines neighborhood, the room shared with another lady she didn't know. And she thought about what Sutton had written her 40 years ago, that line from page 7 that she kept hearing inside her chest. If you came to the mine, it's because something happened to you. Nobody comes to an abandoned mine for the fun of it. You come because something in your home can't be born anymore. And then you remember the ridge. Miss Rufus remembered the ridge. Her brother had been waiting for her there 40 years, and he had left everything ready. The shaft, the air chimney, the cistern of water, the curve at the back where a cot would fit, the 7 small stones, the unopened vein 7, the will registered in her name with Mr. Oliver Aiken, and the names of the 3 honest buyers in the city. Everything. Sutton had left everything. Miss Rufus raised her left hand, brought it to the wax-sealed envelope, took it, looked at it. It was the official will, the one that said in plain words that the mine belonged to Rufus Sawyer Carter since the year 1978. Parcel 5822 of the County Mineral Registry, recorded at the State Mining Office. The paper her son Cody didn't know existed. The paper that would keep him from selling the house on Harrow Street, because the house on Harrow Street was in Miss Rufus's name. And Miss Rufus, with this will in her hand, with this mine in her name, with this official record in her favor, no longer needed the combined pension from Social Security to support herself. She no longer needed Cody to manage anything. She no longer needed the shared room at the assisted living home. She no longer needed. That was the word. Miss Rufus, at 84, sitting on the floor of an abandoned mine at the back of a shaft 150 feet deep on Pochote Ridge, with the candle stub yellowing on the flat stone, discovered that she no longer needed. The nail of her right thumb pressed against the red wax of the sealed envelope. Her body's weight shifted forward. The wax loosened on the left side of the envelope, a millimeter no more without breaking all the way yet, and the candle stub, which had burned steady since the entrance, which had held its flame firm through the whole reading of the 7 sheets, which had not so much as wavered when Miss Rufus whispered her brother's name at 90 feet. At that exact moment, when the nail pressed against the red seal of the envelope, the candle went out. It didn't go out from a draught. There was no draught. It went out for no visible reason. The whole mine went dark, and Miss Rufus at the back of the shaft, with the envelope still unopened between her fingers and the red wax about to give, stayed completely still, not moving, not breathing hard, not knowing for a moment that felt long to her, whether the darkness was the mine's or her own. This is where the first part of this story ends. If you've made it to this moment with me, don't let go now. Keep going with the second part in this same video coming right up. And if this is stirring something in you, if you know someone who's also going through a son trying to take their house away, leave a word for them down below in the comments, or send them this video. Sometimes another person's story reminds someone of something they already knew, but had forgotten they knew. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because the second part has things you're going to want to have heard. Let's continue. It was a darkness that had thickness, that could be felt against the skin. Miss Rufus stayed like that a while, 10 seconds, 20, a minute. She didn't know how long. Time in a darkened mine isn't measured. The sealed envelope was still between her fingers. The nail of her right thumb was still pressed against the red wax. The pressure was still there. 1 millimeter of wax was already loosened on the left side. It hadn't broken all the way. Miss Rufus lowered her hand slowly, set the envelope in the lap of her apron, and breathed. The air of the mine kept coming in and going out through the chimney at the back. The smell was the same. Damp stone, rust from the vein, rock dust, old kerosene from the lantern, and beneath it that smell of dried sweat and old tobacco that she had named inside herself as Sutton, even though it wasn't Sutton. It was the smell of the whole mine. It was the smell of the work of a man who was no longer there. Miss Rufus breathed in that smell, and then, in the darkness, she did what she had to do. She felt the floor to her right. Her hand found the cloth bag. Inside the bag were the spare matches and 2 more candles. She took out a match, took out a new candle, struck it. The flame caught on the first try. She brought it to the wick of the candle. The candle took. The shaft had light again. Miss Rufus breathed again. The yellow light of the new candle lit the cobalt blue tin box. It lit the sealed envelope in her lap. It lit the 7 folded sheets beside her. It lit the cloth pouch with the 7 small stones inside. Everything was there. The old candle, the one that had gone out, lay on its side on the flat stone. The wick still smelled of smoke. Miss Rufus looked at it, picked it up. It still had a good half-inch of wax left. It hadn't gone out from burning down. It had gone out before its time. Miss Rufus said nothing, but she nodded once, slowly. Then she took the sealed envelope. Again she ran her thumb over the red wax. The wax bore the mark of Sutton's thumb, pressed in warm in July of 1985. 40 years. A print of her living brother left there inside the mine, waiting for her to touch it with her own old woman's thumb. Miss Rufus rested her right thumb against the print of Sutton's thumb. The 2 thumbs met in the wax. The dead brother's, hers, separated by 40 years, resting in the same place, and the wax under that pressure gave. The seal broke in 2 pieces. The envelope opened. Inside was a single sheet folded in 3, cleaner than the school notebook sheets of thicker paper, official paper. Miss Rufus unfolded it by the light of the new candle. It was the official will, typed on an old typewriter with the ribbon nearly worn out, the letters skipping in some places but all of them legible, headed with the state seal, signed at the bottom by Rufus Sawyer and by 2 witnesses, Cyrus Yancey and a man named Eli Reese. A hand on Pochote Ridge, sealed by Mr. Oliver Aiken, notary at office number 12 in Cedar Hollow. Date of the document, April 8, 1985. 3 months before Sutton died. The will stated, in the legal language of the country in the 80s, that the grantor, Sutton Sawyer, being of sound mind, left as sole inheritance to his sister, Rufus Sawyer Carter, of legal age, resident of Cedar Hollow, the entirety of the mining claim registered under number 58222 of the County Mineral Registry, corresponding to the parcel named Little Refuge, located on Pochote Ridge in the township of Cedar Hollow. It included the shaft, the accesses, the tools, the accumulated ore samples, and the extraction rights to the 7 registered veins. The claim was current, paid in advance by Sutton through the year 2020. After that date, according to the document, it had to be renewed at the state mining office in the capital. Miss Rufus read that slowly. Then she read the final part, the part that said, "The grantor declares that this claim and all its associated assets pass into the full and unrestricted ownership of the named beneficiary without any third party, family or not, having any right whatsoever over them. The beneficiary may dispose of the property as she sees fit, without need to consult any member of the grantor's family, nor any member of the beneficiary's family. This provision is voluntary, conscious, and final." Miss Rufus read that sentence 3 times. Without need to consult any member of the beneficiary's family. Sutton had written that in 1985, thinking of Cody, who was 20 then. Thinking of Elliot, who was 13. Thinking of Sally, who was 8. Thinking of Andrew, his brother-in-law, who was still alive then and working at the big company mine. Sutton had thought of all of them, and he had written that sentence, without need to consult. Miss Rufus folded the sheet in 3 again, put it into the torn envelope, closed the lid of the tin box, set the 7 school notebook sheets on top of the box, set the pouch with the 7 stones on top. She got up from the floor, her knees cracked. She was 84 and had been kneeling a long time. It was hard for her to stand. She braced herself against the shaft wall with her left hand. The stone was cold and firm. She took the candle in her right hand, took the tin box under her left arm, and started walking toward the mine mouth. 150 feet back. Miss Rufus walked slowly. She counted the steps to herself, without saying them aloud. The yellow light of the candle lit the walls. At 115 feet she saw the chalk cross. She passed it. At 80 feet she saw the 7 chisel notches. She passed them. At 50 feet she saw the arrow with the word "onward." She passed it. At 40 feet, the cross. At about 20 feet, vein 1. And then the light from outside began to come in. It was yellow too, but different. It was yellow with dust, with warm earth, with high country sky. Miss Rufus came out of the mine mouth at 4:15 in the afternoon. The sun was dropping toward the west, toward the far hills. The light hit her in the face, made her close her eyes a moment. Then she opened them. Pochote Ridge spread out below her with its scrub cedars, its bramble, its dark blackberries, its yellow August dust that already smelled of September. In the distance to the southwest, you could see Cedar Hollow, the steeple of the church, the tin roofs of the mineral district, and behind it the hills. Miss Rufus put out the candle with her fingers, put it in the cloth bag, took the padlock off the ground, closed the wooden door, ran the lock through the hasp, locked it with the key. The mine went quiet again, but it wasn't the same mine as in the morning. It was a mine opened, touched, known. Miss Rufus settled the cloth bag on her shoulder. Inside it rode the tin box with all the papers. The pouch of 7 ore stones rode there too. The kerosene lantern she'd taken off the post rode there, the spare red candle, the bone rosary, the little prayer card of St. Anne. She started down. At 5:30 in the afternoon, she reached the foot of the ridge. At 6:15, she passed the big black boulder. At 7:10, she entered town by Allen Street, passed the old cemetery, did not stop. There'd be time. At 7:40, she reached the town market. Miss Cora was packing up the cornbread basket, nearly all of it sold. 3 were left. "Miss Rufus, I thought you weren't coming." I set aside the 2 with the pork, but I was about to give 'em to the cat. "Here I am, Miss Cora. Want me to warm 'em up? I'll just take 'em like this." Miss Cora put them in a paper bag. She charged 12 cents. Miss Rufus took it from the right pocket of her apron. She paid. "Miss Rufus." "Yes, Miss Cora." "I saw you head out this morning. Saw you looking real serious." "I'm all right, Miss Cora." "You sure?" "I'm sure." Miss Cora looked at her good. Miss Rufus held her gaze. Miss Cora nodded. "Rest easy, Miss Rufus." "You too." Miss Rufus went on. She passed the square, went up Miners Lane, reached Harrow Street, walked toward her house. The navy blue suitcase was still against the front wall. Medium-sized navy blue, the wheels still damp, though nearly dry now. Miss Rufus looked at it, walked past it, didn't touch it. She took the house key from the right pocket of her apron, opened the door, went in, closed it behind her. The house was as she'd left it that morning. The kitchen with the 2 dirty mugs, the 3 sheets with the copied signature on the table, the wood stove cold, the red candle on the little altar still burning. It had a half-hour of wick left. Miss Rufus sat down on the wooden bench, set the cloth bag on the table, took out the tin box, set it beside the little altar, looked at the small photograph of Sutton from 1985. The thin face, the high cheekbones from his mother's side, the small eyes, the barely there smile. Sutton was 46 in that photo. He had a year of life left. Miss Rufus spoke to him. "I'm back, brother." The candle kept burning. I read it. The candle kept on. I understood. Miss Rufus got up, came over to the little altar, took the tin box, set it on the altar shelf beside the photograph. The box sat just right there. It fit exactly, as if the shelf had been made 40 years before to receive that box. Exactly. Miss Rufus closed her eyes a moment, then opened them, and then she did something she hadn't done in a long time. She raised her right hand, rested it on the photograph of Sutton, set her fingers against the glass. The glass was cold, had several days' dust on it. Miss Rufus ran her fingers across it, wiped the dust. Then she left her hand resting there a good long while, saying nothing more, just resting. When she lowered her hand, Sutton's dust had stayed on her fingers. Miss Rufus wiped them on her apron. The grey smudge stayed on the cloth. Then to the kitchen. She lit the wood stove, heated water, made coffee, poured a mug, brought it to the table and sat down to eat the 2 cornbreads with the pork from Miss Cora. While she ate, she thought. She thought about Cody. She thought about what was going to happen the following Tuesday, when he came back with the silver pickup at 9:20 in the morning, expecting to take her to the home. She thought about the 3 sheets with the copied signature, and the curve of the R a little tighter than the way she made it. She wasn't afraid. She had something stronger than fear. She had clarity. That night, Miss Rufus slept well. Not well the way she'd slept all her life. Well the way she hadn't slept in a long time. Her body was tired from the walk to the ridge and back, 8 miles with the bag on her shoulder. Her legs were heavy, her shoulders were heavy, but inside her chest that small animal that had settled in that morning was no longer there. It had gone. In its place there was something else. Lighter, longer. At 5:35 in the morning on Wednesday, August 13th, Miss Rufus lit the red candle on the little altar. She said the same 3 words, "I'm here, brother." But this time she said them differently. She said them with her whole body, not just with her mouth. She said them like someone confirming something that had already happened. Then she had her coffee. Then she swept the yard. Then she opened the cedar wardrobe and took out 2 changes of clothes. She laid them on the bed. She took out a clean sheet. She took out her mother's wool blanket. She took out another, smaller blanket, Andrew's. She folded them all, put them in a big cloth bag. At 10 in the morning, Miss Rufus went out. She walked 3 blocks to the office of Mr. Oliver Aiken, Jr., son of the notary at office number 12 in Cedar Hollow. The office was on Main Street above the mineral hardware store, 2nd floor, wooden staircase. She went up, knocked. A young secretary opened the door, 22 or so, grey skirt, white blouse, round glasses. "Good morning." "Good morning, miss. I'd like to see Mr. Aiken." "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Mr. Aiken only sees clients by appointment." Miss Rufus nodded, took from the left pocket of her apron a folded sheet, held it out. "Tell Mr. Aiken I've come on behalf of my brother, Sutton Sawyer, that I'm here about a matter from the files of Notary Office number 12, that his father kept a paper of mine 40 years ago." The secretary looked at the sheet. It was the official will, the red wax broken at the edge. The young woman looked up. "Wait a moment, ma'am." Miss Rufus waited in the small front room with 2 wooden chairs. The secretary went through a door at the back, She took 3 minutes, came back, opened the door for her. "Come in, ma'am." Miss Rufus went in. Mr. Oliver Aiken, Jr. was 62. He was the son of the notary at office number 12, already dead since 2016. He'd inherited the practice and the notary's seal. He had a grey moustache, bifocal glasses, a light blue shirt. He was standing behind the desk when she came in with Sutton's will in her hands. "Miss Rufus Sawyer Carter." "Yes, sir." "Come in. Sit down." Miss Rufus sat. "Ma'am, this document was kept by my father for 31 years. Then I kept it for 9. It's been exactly 40 years in the files of this office. My father told me that one day a lady would come asking for it. He told me to take good care of her, not to charge her for the first consultation." Miss Rufus didn't answer. She only nodded. "Do you know what you're holding?" "I know it's my brother's will." "It's more than that, ma'am. It's an active mining claim. It's paid through the year 2020. That means it's been expired for 5 years. But the renewal is a simple matter. It's a fee per year, retroactive. 12 years of back fees plus the current renewal and the update charge. It comes to a few $1,000s in total. That brings the claim active again in your name with all the rights. A few $1,000s? Yes, ma'am, Miss Rufus thought. She didn't have a few $1,000s. She had, kept in a coffee tin under the bed, about 300. She had the combined pension for the month, coming the first of the month, 1,700. She had the 7 small stones from the mine that, according to Sutton, were worth a fair bit at 85 prices. At today's prices, she didn't know. But something. "Mr. Aiken." "Yes, ma'am." "I have 7 stones from the mine. My brother left them to me, raw silver. I want to know what they're worth." "Do you have them here?" "I have them at my house. I can bring them tomorrow." "Bring them." "I know a buyer in the city who's honest. Mr. Charles Renner, grandson of Mr. Edward Renner, the one your brother knew. The grandfather died 12 years ago. The grandson carries on the business. The office is at the Central Market, same stall as the grandfather. I'll call him. If the 7 stones are good grade silver, they could easily give you a sizable sum. Raw silver pays better today than in 85, and out of that, a few thousand are for the renewal. That leaves you, by my reckoning, a good amount free and clear." Miss Rufus lowered her eyes, looked at the desk, then raised them again. "Mr. Aiken, I don't know about these things. My brother died 40 years ago. I've never done a transaction like this. I'll help you, ma'am. That's my part to do. That's why my father kept your paper. And another thing, Mr. Aiken." "Yes." "My son Cody, the oldest, wants to put me in an assisted living home over in Fairview. He brought some papers to the house yesterday. He says the house doesn't hold up anymore, that he has to rent it or sell it. He's got a power of attorney that he says I signed, but I didn't sign it. The signature is copied. My R doesn't come out like that. I've got the papers kept." Mr. Aiken took off his glasses, cleaned them on the edge of his light blue shirt, put them back on, looked at Miss Rufus. "Ma'am." "Yes, Mr. Aiken." "What you're telling me is a crime. Forgery of a signature on a public document. That, ma'am, is prison for whoever did it. I don't want my son to go to prison." "I understand, ma'am. But you don't have to go to a home either, and no one has to rent out or sell your house. Bring me the sheets with the copied signature tomorrow, along with the 7 stones. Both things. We're going to do 2 transactions. 1, renew the mining claim in your name. 2, certify before a notary that you have not signed any power of attorney to anyone, and place in your personal file a declaration that invalidates any document with your copied signature that may turn up in the future. That protects you, and it takes the tool away from your son, without your having to report him, without your having to fight it out in court." Miss Rufus nodded. "And another thing, Mr. Aiken." "Yes." "An old mine, a shaft, a mine mouth with a new padlock, a key only I have. All of that in my name, it's my property, complete." "Complete, ma'am." "Mine?" "No one's, ma'am, if you don't give permission. And if anyone goes in without permission, that's trespassing. That can be reported. I can sleep inside if I want." Mr. Aiken looked at her again slowly. "Yes, ma'am. You can do what you like with your property. If you want to sleep inside, you sleep inside. If you want to build a small room outside, you build it. If you want to go live there, you go. The claim includes residential use rights within the limits of the parcel." Miss Rufus lowered her gaze to the desk again. She sat thinking. "Ma'am?" "Yes." "Are you thinking of going to live at the mine?" Miss Rufus took a moment to answer. "Not exactly, Mr. Aiken, but maybe for a season, to think things over good. So my son makes peace with the idea that there's not going to be a home, and there's not going to be any renting, and there's not going to be any selling. So he sees that I'm not crazy, or old, or helpless. I have my house, I have my mine, I have my pension, and now I'm going to have my money from the sale. I don't need him for a thing." Mr. Aiken laughed quietly, no mockery in it, with respect. "Ma'am, my father would have liked to hear you talk like that." "Thank you, Mr. Aiken. I'll set the appointment with Mr. Charles Renner for Friday. I'll go with you to the city if you like. My car's outside. We leave at 7 in the morning. By 8:30 we're at the Central Market. We do the deal, we come back in the afternoon. I help you with the paperwork." "I'll be grateful for that. Don't thank me yet. Bring me the things tomorrow and we'll get started." Miss Rufus stood. Mr. Aiken stood too, held out his hand. Miss Rufus shook it. It was the firm hand of a man who had written a great deal by typewriter and by pen over many years. "Until tomorrow, ma'am." "Until tomorrow, Mr. Aiken." Miss Rufus went out. She went down the wooden staircase, past the mineral hardware store on the ground floor. She bought a new wick for the kerosene lantern. She bought a quart of kerosene. She paid. Mr. Eustace Aguilar, the old retired miner of 81 who lived in the room above the store, was leaning out the window. He waved at her. "Miss Rufus, did you see the rabbit up on the ridge?" "I didn't see a rabbit, Mr. Eustace. I saw something else." "What did you see?" "Something that had been waiting on me a long time." Mr. Eustace laughed. He laughed with that old miner's laugh that has a lot of air in it. "Take care, ma'am." "You take care, sir." Miss Rufus went on. She returned to Harrow Street, went into her house, closed the door, sat down on the wooden bench, took the kerosene lantern out of the cloth bag, put the new wick in it, filled it with kerosene, tested the knob. It worked. The flame rose clear and firm. The lantern would light up well. That afternoon, Miss Rufus did something she hadn't done in a long time. She called Sally on the landline in the front room. She asked her to come, not to arrive at 5:30 in the afternoon like always, but to come at lunchtime so they could eat together. Sally arrived at 1:30. Miss Rufus had beef stew on the stove and white rice with a slice of fried plantain. They ate in the kitchen, one across from the other. The white sheet with the red chain-stitch border was still folded on the bed in the back room. The navy blue suitcase was still outside against the wall. Sally looked at her mother. "Mama." "Yes, my girl." "Cody called me yesterday afternoon. He told me about the home. He told me he gave you a week to think it over. That's what he told me." "My girl. Are you going to think it over?" "I already thought it over." Sally set the spoon down, looked at her mother. "And?" "I'm not going, my girl, I'm not going. This house is mine and I'm not going to rent it. I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to a home. Cody's going to have to understand, and you're going to have to help me make him understand." Sally stayed quiet a moment. "Mama, Cody has papers. He has a power of attorney. He showed it to me." "That paper has my signature copied. The curve of the R doesn't come out like that for me. I didn't sign anything." "And tomorrow I'm going to be with Mr. Oliver Aiken, Jr., the one at the office on Main Street, to make a certified declaration that invalidates any copied signature of mine that turns up. That's tomorrow. And Friday I'm going with him to the city. I'm going to sell some things I have. I'm going to have money of my own. And next week, when your brother comes back Tuesday the 19th with his silver pickup and his suitcase pulled out of my wardrobe, I'm going to tell him what I have to tell him, and you're going to be with me." Sally looked at her a long time. Then she nodded slowly. "Mama." "Yes." "What things are you going to sell in the city?" Miss Rufus lowered her eyes to the plate, then raised them. "My girl, I'm going to tell you something that hasn't been spoken about in this family in 40 years. Your Uncle Sutton, before he died, left me something. A mine, little refuge up on Pochote Ridge. I'd never been back until yesterday. Yesterday I went, and I opened it, and I found what my brother left me." Sally put the spoon on the table, both hands in her lap. Mama, I found papers. I found 7 stones of raw silver. I found a shaft my brother left ready for me. I found a claim in my name since '78. There's a will. It's current. It's in order. And you never said anything. Never, my girl, because I'd never gone in. Because your uncle left me the key 40 years ago, and I kept it without opening it until yesterday. Sally put her hands to her face. She didn't cry, but she breathed hard. Once, twice. Why until yesterday, Mama? Because until yesterday I didn't need it, my girl. Sally lowered her hands. Cody doesn't know. Cody doesn't know. Are you going to tell him? When he comes Tuesday, I'm going to tell him everything. I'm going to show him the papers. I'm going to tell him I don't need his money. I don't need his home. I don't need him to manage anything for me. That the house stays mine, that the mine stays mine, that my pension stays mine, and that if he wants to come visit me on Sundays like always, I'll have him. But as a son, not as a manager. Sally nodded slowly. Mama, yes, I'm going to be with you on Tuesday. I knew you would, my girl. And I'm going with you tomorrow to Mr. Aiken's office, if you'll let me. I'll let you. That would help me. Sally nodded again. She put her hand on her mother's hand. Her mother's was wrinkled, the veins standing out, small spots of age on it. Sally's was smoother, still with the youth that's slipping away, but is still there in the palm. They ate the rest of the stew without talking much. Afterward, Miss Rufus told Sally about the marks on the walls, the chisel notches, the white chalk with the words Vein 1, Water, Onward, the kerosene lantern hung on the cedar post, the cobalt blue tin box on the ledge at the back, the 7 small stones in the cloth pouch, the line of Sutton's from page 7 that said, Sally isn't Cody. Sally listened to all of it with her mouth pressed tight. When Miss Rufus finished, Sally said in a low voice, Uncle Sutton carried me when I was little. I remember him. I was 5 years old, and he'd carry me on his shoulders to the square on Sundays. He'd buy me popsicles. He told me that when I grew up, he'd give me a piece of silver to have a ring made. Miss Rufus looked at her. My girl. Yes, Mamma. One of the 7 stones is for you. Sally lowered her eyes. Mamma, no. Yes. One for you, one for Elliot if he wants it, and if not, something else. One for me, one to keep, and the other 3 I'm going to sell. That's what I'm going to do. And Cody? Miss Rufus stayed quiet a while. Then she said slowly, Cody, my girl, already took his. That copied signature on my paper. That was his part, the one he chose. And the one he chose, I can't give back to him. But I'm not going to forgive him by piling on top of him either. I'm just not going to give it to him. Sally nodded. At 4:30 in the afternoon, Sally went back to her work at the clinic. Miss Rufus stayed alone in the house, washed the dishes, tidied the kitchen, sat down again on the wooden bench, and then opened the tin box. Again she took out the 7 school notebook sheets, read them again, this time more slowly, this time stopping at each sentence, looking for what Sutton had written her that she, on the first reading inside the mine, hadn't quite been able to take in. She found things she hadn't seen. On page 3, Sutton told her, if Cody gets difficult, sister, don't give him explanations. Men like Cody don't move with explanations. They move with facts. You just show him the paper and let him read. The rest settles itself. On page 5, he told her, Miss Cora's pork cornbread at the market will always be there. If one day it isn't, it's because Miss Cora has died. But her daughter or her granddaughter will carry on the stall. The cornbread is tradition. It doesn't get lost. On page 6, he told her, the little cistern in the mine. I opened it thinking that one day you'd need it. I don't know when, but just in case. The water seeps in well. It doesn't run out. Even if there are 3-year droughts, the water keeps coming. I proved it in '82 when there was a hard drought. Miss Rufus read it all. When she finished, she got up, came over to the little altar, set the tin box on the shelf beside the photograph, and stood looking at the photograph a long while. Then she said, Brother, thank you. That was all. On Thursday, August 14th, Miss Rufus and Sally went to the office of Mr. Oliver Aiken, Jr. They brought the 3 sheets with the copied signature. They brought the 7 small stones of raw silver in the cloth pouch. They brought Sutton's will. Mr. Aiken did the certified declaration that invalidated any document with Miss Rufus's copied signature. He signed it in the presence of Sally as a witness. He sealed it, recorded it in the office files and in the county registry of deeds. Miss Rufus left with a certified copy in her hand. Friday, August 15th, was the feast day in Cedar Hollow. The church bells of the town rang from 6 in the morning. Mr. Aiken came by for Miss Rufus at 7 in his car, a white sedan, a 2018 model. Sally came too. They set out down State Route 49 toward the city. They reached the Central Market at 8:35. Mr. Charles Renner was waiting for them at the stall in the back. He was 52. He was the grandson of the buyer Sutton had known. He was a man with big hands, light eyes, a grey smock over his shirt. He examined the 7 stones with a jeweler's loupe for 15 minutes. He weighed them on a small brass scale. He did calculations in a notebook. Then he looked at Miss Rufus. "Ma'am, the 7 stones are very good grade. Pure silver 72 to 78%. The best is the 7th. That one runs to 81. I can give you a good sum for all 7 together." Miss Rufus nodded. "Do you accept, ma'am?" "I accept." Mr. Charles took the money from a safe behind the stall. He counted it in front of Miss Rufus. They were large bills. Miss Rufus received them, counted them again, put them away in an inner pocket of her shawl. "Ma'am?" "Yes, Mr. Renner." "If your mind keeps producing, come see me. My stall is here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. My grandfather knew your brother. My family knew your family. This goes on." "Thank you, sir." They went back to Cedar Hollow at 4 in the afternoon. Miss Rufus went into her house with the money in the inner pocket of her shawl. She sat down on the wooden bench, took out the money, set it on the table. It was the first time in her life she'd seen that amount of money, her own and in cash, on her own table. Miss Rufus didn't feel excitement. She felt something else, something quieter, more settled, like when you close a door that's been standing open by accident for a long time. Saturday the 16th and Sunday the 17th, Miss Rufus stayed at her house. Sally came both afternoons. They talked about ordinary things and the weather, the cornbread. Sally's grandson Jacob, 6 years old, who was learning to read. But they didn't talk about Cody. There was no need. The matter of Tuesday was already agreed upon in silence between the two of them. Monday, the 18th of August, Miss Rufus went back to Mr. Aiken's office. She paid the renewal of the mining claim. Mr. Aiken sent the papers by courier to the capital. The claim was made active in her name, parcel 5822, through the year 2035. At 5:35 in the morning on Tuesday, August 19th, Miss Rufus lit the red candle on the little altar. She said the 3 words, "I'm here, brother." She had her coffee, got dressed, settled her shawl, and waited. At 9:20 in the morning, the engine of the silver pickup sounded outside. Cody got out. He wore the same beige shirt and carried the same black leather briefcase. This time he hadn't brought the suitcase. He expected to take his mother away, not to bring her anything. He knocked on the door. Miss Rufus opened it. "Morning, Mama." "Morning, son. Did you think it over?" "Yes." "Let's go." "No, son." Cody stood still in the doorway. "What do you mean, no?" "Come in, son. We're going to talk." Cody came in. Sally was sitting on the wooden bench in the kitchen. Cody was surprised to see her there on a Tuesday at 9:20 in the morning. "Sally, what are you doing here?" "She's with me, son." Cody looked at the two of them. "Mama, what's going on?" Miss Rufus sat down across from Cody, took from the altar shelf a grey folder Mr. Aiken had prepared for her the day before. Inside were the certified declaration invalidating the copied signature, sealed by the notary, the copy of Sutton's will, the renewal of the Little Refuge mining claim, and the copy of the bank deposit, the money from the sale, minus what she'd paid for the renewal, which Miss Rufus had put into an account at the Cedar Hollow Bank on Monday afternoon in her own name. Miss Rufus laid the folder on the table. "Son." "Yes, Mama." "Read it." Cody opened the folder, began to read, took his time, turned the pages, his face growing more serious. When he reached the certified declaration invalidating the copied signature, he stopped. "Mama." "Yes." "This, Mama, This is telling the notary that I forged your signature. That's what the paper says, son. But that paper doesn't report you. That paper just closes the door so you can't use any document of mine that you signed for me. If you'd signed your own name, you wouldn't have needed this paper. But since you signed wrong, now this paper is here, and what you had, your power of attorney of mine, doesn't work anymore. There's not going to be a home. There's not going to be any renting. There's not going to be any selling. Cody set the folder on the table. Mama? Yes, I only wanted to take care of you. Cody? Yes, you didn't want to take care of me. You wanted to put me away. There's a difference, and taking care of myself fell to me to do. Cody stayed quiet. And the mine, Mama. The mine your Uncle Sutton opened in '76. It's been in my name since '78. I didn't know it. Your uncle kept it quiet from me. I found it out last Tuesday after you left with your truck. The claim's active. The money in the bank is from the 7 stones your uncle left me inside. And the mine goes on. It has 7 veins. The 7th, your uncle never opened. That one I'm going to keep for myself. You went into the mine, Mama? I went in last week, son. I climbed Pochote Ridge alone. I opened the mine mouth with the key your uncle left me. I went in the 150 feet. I found the box. I took out the stones, sold them in the city with Mr. Hyken, and now the mine is mine. Official, with the claim renewed. Cody looked at Sally. Sally held his gaze without speaking. Mama, why didn't you tell me? Because you didn't ask me, son. You showed up with a suitcase and 3 sheets signed by copying. You showed up with a plan, not with a question. And people who show up with a plan, you don't tell them what you've got put away. You just take care of yourself. Cody breathed, looked at the folder again, then looked at his mother. What do you want me to do? I want you to go back to Fairview, son, to think for a week, and the following Sunday come see me like before, to eat at 2 o'clock, to talk, without a suitcase, without a briefcase, without papers, just as a son. And if you can't come like that, don't come. I love you, son, but I don't love a manager. I don't need a manager. I manage myself. Cody swallowed. His eyes went red, but he didn't cry. He got up from the bench, closed the folder, left it on the table for his mother. Mama. Yes. I'll think about it. Think about it, son. Go on. Cody said his goodbyes. He didn't hug his mother, didn't hug his sister. He went out, climbed into the silver pickup, started the engine. The motor faded off down Miners Lane. Miss Rufus and Sally stayed seated in the kitchen, the one across from the other. Mama. Yes, my girl. He'll come back. Maybe yes, maybe no. It doesn't depend on me anymore. Miss Rufus got up, took the navy blue suitcase that was still against the front wall, brought it into the house, took it up to the back room, put it away again in the cedar wardrobe, under the old blankets, where it had been for 34 years before Cody pulled it out. Then she went out into the yard, took down a new sheet from the line, Monday's dry now, folded it, carried it to the wardrobe, and shut the wardrobe. That was all of that Tuesday. Cody didn't come back the following Sunday, the 24th. He didn't call. He didn't send word. Miss Rufus ate alone with Sally that day. They didn't talk about Cody. Miss Rufus didn't ask either. The following Sunday, the 31st of August, he didn't come either, didn't call. Sunday, September 7th at 2:15 in the afternoon, the engine of the silver pickup sounded outside the house on Harrow Street. Miss Rufus was in the kitchen. She had beef stew on the stove. Sally opened the door. Cody came in without a briefcase, without a suitcase, without the ironed beige shirt. He wore a blue denim shirt and ordinary pants. He carried in his hand a paper bag. Inside was bread. Bread from the bakery in town. Chocolate glazed rolls. They were his mother's favorite. Afternoon, Mama. Afternoon, son. I brought you bread. Thank you, son. Cody handed the bag to his mother. Then he sat down on the wooden bench in his usual spot across from the table, without hugging anyone yet, without saying anything more. Miss Rufus put the rolls on a white plate. She poured 3 mugs of coffee, served 3 bowls of stew. They ate slowly, talked about small things, the September weather, the blackberries that were ready to pick now, Sally's grandson Jacob, who could already read the bus sign on his own. They didn't talk about the mine. They didn't talk about the home. They didn't talk about the 3 sheets with the copied signature. Cody left at 4 in the afternoon, like always. At the door, before getting into the pickup, he stopped. He turned around. "Mama." "Yes, son." "I'll come back next Sunday." "I'll be waiting for you, son." "All right." Cody got into the pickup. He started the engine. Miss Rufus and Sally watched him fade off down Miners Lane, dropping toward the square until the motor was lost. Miss Rufus closed the door, went back to the kitchen. Sally was washing the mugs. "My girl." "Yes, Mama." "Do you think he'll come back next Sunday?" "I think so, Mama." "So do I." Miss Rufus sat down again on the wooden bench. Sally finished washing up. Then she sat down beside her mother. "Mama." "Yes." "The stones you sold, did you keep any?" "3 I kept, 1 for me, 1 for you. 1 for Elliot if he wants it." "Where are they?" "In the altar, inside the tin box beside your uncle's photograph." Sally got up, came over to the little altar, opened the box. Inside were the 3 small stones. She took them out one by one, looked at them in the yellow light of the kitchen bulb. They were the size of a quail's egg. They had glints of raw silver among the grey stone. "Mama." "Yes." "Which one is mine?" "Whichever you like, my girl. Choose." Sally chose the middle one, the smallest of the 3. She pressed it in her palm. "This one." "Yours, my girl?" Sally put it away in her apron pocket without saying anything more. That night, after Sally left, Miss Rufus stayed alone in the kitchen. She lit the red candle even though it wasn't dawn. She sat down on the wooden bench, took the tin box, took out the 7 school notebook sheets, read them again. This time she wasn't looking for anything. She just read. When she finished, she folded the sheets, put them in the box, closed the lid, set the box on the altar shelf beside the photograph, and said in a low voice, "Brother." She waited a moment. "It's all settled now." That was all. At the end of September, Miss Rufus climbed Pochote Ridge again. This time she didn't go to open the mine. She went to pick blackberries. She carried the thick leather glove and the long stick for reaching. The season was at its best. The berries were dark, abundant, sweet. Miss Rufus picked 37 that afternoon, kept them in a cloth bag, passed by the mine mouth without going in. She only looked at the wooden door with the padlock. She ran her hand over it. The wood was still firm, the padlock still closed. "See you soon, brother." And she went down. In October, Miss Rufus decided to do one more thing. She talked to Mr. Aiken. She asked him to draw up a conditional transfer. It stated that the little refuge mine, parcel 5802, in the event of the death of Miss Rufus Sawyer Carter, would pass into joint ownership of her 3 children in equal shares, but with one condition. The mine could never be sold. It could only be kept, or, if all 3 children agreed, donated in its entirety to a community fund of independent miners of the region for use in exploration and teaching. That was Miss Rufus's decision. "Let the mine not go away, Mr. Aiken. Let it stay in the family as long as the family takes care of it, and if the family doesn't take care of it, let the community have it, but let it not be sold. My brother left it to me because he knew I wouldn't sell it. I'm going to leave the same thing to my 3 children. If even one of them wants to sell it, it can't be done. All 3 have to agree, and since Sally is never going to sell it, it stays protected." Mr. Aiken drew up the conditional transfer on October 18th. Miss Rufus signed it. Sally signed as a witness. It was recorded in the office files and in the county registry of deeds. By the end of October, Cody had come back 5 Sundays in a row, always at 1:30, always with bread from the bakery, always without a briefcase. The 3 of them would eat, talk about small things, and he'd leave at 4 in the afternoon. The last Sunday of October, before leaving, Cody stopped at the little altar. He looked at the photograph of Sutton. He looked at the tin box. "Mama." "Yes, son." "Could I go with you one day to the mine?" Miss Rufus looked at him a long time. "When you're ready, son. And when I'm ready. But not yet. I'm not ready yet. And maybe you aren't either." Cody nodded without protesting, without asking for more. "All right, Mama." "All right, son." He left. In December, Elliot came up from Texas. He came for 3 days. He talked little, as always. But the last night, before leaving, Miss Rufus handed him the small stone that was for him, the one she'd kept in the tin box. "Son." "Yes, Mama. Your Uncle Sutton loved you, even if you maybe don't remember much. This was for you, one of the 7 stones from his mine." Elliot received it. He looked at it. It was small. It had glints of silver. "Mama, thank you." "Don't thank me, son. It was yours before you were born. I'm just handing it to you." Elliot put it away. He didn't say more. But before getting into the taxi to the airport in the city, he hugged his mother. A long hug, the way he hadn't hugged her since he was 15. "Mama." "Yes, son. Next time I'll come for more days. I'll be waiting for you, son." The taxi left. In January of the following year, Miss Rufus turned 85. There was no party. She didn't want one. Sally came with a small 3-layer cake, homemade, with a single candle. Jacob, Sally's grandson, sang her happy birthday in the voice of a 6-year-old, still a little off-key. Cody came at midday with a big bag of bread from the bakery and a tiny box wrapped in gift paper. Inside the box was a new clay incense burner. For the altar, Miss Rufus received it. "Thank you, son." "You're welcome, Mama." She set it beside the photograph of Sutton, right between the photograph and the tin box, as if the shelf had been made to receive it. That afternoon, after everyone had gone, Miss Rufus sat down on the wooden bench. She lit the new red candle, lit a little incense in the burner. The smoke rose straight up. It smelled of resin, of deep earth. Miss Rufus looked at the photograph of Sutton. "Brother." She waited. "I turned 85. I'm telling you in case you didn't know." The candle kept burning. "I'm still here, the house too, the mine too, the children too, each one however they could. Sally well, Cody coming back, Elliot calling more. Things on the whole settled." The incense smoke kept rising. "Thank you for the key, brother. I kept it 40 years without opening it, but I kept it, and in the end it served me. That's what you wanted, and I understood it late, but I understood it." Miss Rufus stayed quiet a while, then she said, "I'm here, brother, and here I'm going to stay." She put out the candle with her fingers, put out the incense, closed up the kitchen, went to the back room, lay down and slept that night like a woman who no longer owes anything to anyone. There are things a person keeps for 40 years without knowing why they keep them. A thick iron key, a rusted tin box, a cardboard tag with 4 letters and 2 words in pencil, "My sister." They keep them in a drawer at the back of a cedar wardrobe, under the old blankets, where no one looks for them, where no one asks for them, where sometimes not even she herself remembers she has them. They keep them because someone who loved her once told her before dying, "Keep it safe for me." And the word keep is a big word, which she understood as store away, and so she stored it away. And storing it away for 40 years seemed enough to her, because to the women of the high country, who have grown up watching their brothers die of black lung at 47, storing away seems, for a long time, the only possible way of keeping. Until one day, on any ordinary August morning, a son shows up with a suitcase and 3 sheets signed by copying and a plan she never asked for. And then, in the left pocket of her apron, beneath the grey shawl, inside a drawer of the cedar wardrobe, that key of 40 years remembers that it is a key, and the woman who kept it remembers that she is a woman, and the dead brother who left it inside a little box, waiting for that exact moment, remembers too that one day he told his sister, "Keep it safe for me." And he understood, without having been alive to see it, that his sister would understand late, but in time, that keeping wasn't storing away. Keeping was using what the other one left us, so as not to go where we don't want to go. That is the story of Miss Rufus Sawyer Carter, of the corner of Harrow Street and Miners Lane in the mineral district of Cedar Hollow, Tennessee, 85 years old. A woman who opened an abandoned mine that had been waiting on her for 40 years, who found the marks her brother had left on the walls and in a box at the back, and who understood that the little refuge her brother had named for her in 1976 was not a hole in a ridge. It was a place where no one was going to be able to send her anywhere she didn't want to go. If you've made it this far with me, Thank you. I mean it. These stories are told slowly, because the lives of the older women of the high country are told slowly. There's no shouting, no courtroom drama, no photograph in the newspaper. There's a key in a drawer, a walk to the ridge, a box on a shelf, and a decision made in silence on some ordinary afternoon. If this story reminded you of someone, a mother, an aunt, a neighbor, an acquaintance who's going through something similar, send them this video. Sometimes someone else's story gives a person permission to make it their own. And leave me a word down below. Tell me about a small place you've guarded in silence for years without anyone asking you why. A room, a box, a drawer, a notebook, a key kept safe, whatever it is. To one person, the one who feels like they're asking to be named in this video, I'll reply with a word meant just for them and tap the little heart so these stories reach more women like Miss Rufus. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the next story is already waiting, and you're going to want to be here. See you soon.